Morning, Andy.
Yeah.
We'll call a meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Baker?
Yes.
Meek?
Yes.
Steingraber?
Yep.
Keo?
Yes.
Myers?
Yes, here. This is a public comment period, and any correspondence you could share. Are there any comments or correspondence?
Do you want correspondence from Jennifer now, finance officer, or do you want that during the bills?
Oh, we can do it now.
Okay.
Okay.
Andy and I met with Jennifer for, what, an hour and a half?
Yeah.
We had a very good conversation, very pleasant conversation. And I put together a letter that is available. Did I send you a copy, Mike?
I don't believe so.
Okay, anyway, I've got a letter, it's on Drive, if we wanted to send it down to the meeting. But Jennifer contacted the attorney. And basically what this comes down to, relative to bills, we can have a single commissioner approve the bills instead of the entire commission. We need to have a resolution on official policy statement.
If that solves the problem, I'm more open to it.
And there are a couple little things in here, for instance, recurring bills, like utilities. Since there really isn't any those could be considered in the line of auto pays, and staff could simply punch those in.
Okay.
And they came across.
Won't fluctuate much. There's hardly any discussion on those particular items.
Right. So all that we need, probably for the next meeting, would be some type of formal resolution indicating that.
Right.
One question that hasn't been answered is, can the commissioner who's signing the bills pull out an item for discussion by the entire commission?
Well, what would our policy say? It's a development for that discussion.
We can have the policy, but that gives us the, let's say there's 2 items. It's again, we've got binoculars come on one of the bills. So let's say the person who's signing this is saying, we don't agree. Person signing says, I don't agree with this purchase. It seems to be the price is too low for all of the optics. Brings it back to the committee, and the committee then says, well, no, chief, we're gonna authorize you to buy Nikons or Carl Zeiss rather than a purchase that's at $120 or $125 because we want premium. So that is a point that's unanswered, and that might be addressed to the municipalities. But basically, we've got the recurring bills, which is easy to handle, and then all we need is the resolution. And whether that resolution would include something about pulling a bill, that might be something to consult with Attorney Wolf.
Jennifer going to draw the resolution as part of finance, or?
Apparently it's our resolution.
Okay. All right.
Because we're the ones who have to sign rather than Jennifer.
Okay.
Might be the 2 different ones that needed, one for the auto pays and one for like, the weird stuff that either it's too high or too low, whatever, or it needs to go in a different bucket. That's what I'm hearing too as well. Third option.
Yeah, there might be a multiple resolution or a resolution with multiple parts.
Being that you and Andy are so well informed on the details of it, maybe I could ask for volunteers to put the resolution together.
I'll take care of that.
Okay, all right.
I never offered to do anything.
So you both volunteered, I appreciate that.
I'll take care of that.
And I appreciate your efforts, and it's been an ongoing thing more recently, and this should take care of it then.
And I'll say our conversation with Jennifer was really a pleasant conversation. I had charted out many of our concerns so it's easy to see. And I think she understands our position, we understand her position.
Okay. So I just take it we all concur that this is the direction we should go for, we'll have an expected resolution at the next meeting. Take care of business then. Okay, thanks, Bill. Thanks, Andy. Any other comments or questions or correspondence? Okay, moving on, approval of the minutes of the August 2nd special joint town council fire commission meeting.
Move approval.
Motion and a second to approve. Any questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Approval of minutes from the August 11th regular meeting.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Bill, second by Andy. Any questions on those? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And approval of the minutes of the August 18th special meeting.
Move approval.
Andy, second by Steve. Any questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Everything is being video over. Fire service law enforcement news updates. Joe,
We've got
An assignment.
oh, I'm sorry. We have an assignment. A relief lieutenant, chief.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Want to step on it, Tony? So on August 31st, we ran a promotional process. We had 9 applicants apply, 4 for relief lieutenant, 4 for lieutenant, and 3 for deputy chief. So we had some people that applied for lieutenant and deputy chief both. Tony Fighter here applied for the relief lieutenant position, and he was first in the scoring during that process. A little bit of background on Tony. Tony began his career with the Marshfield Fire and Rescue Department on July 10th, 2017. Prior to his career here, he was a national firefighter for over 3 years. Tony's been studying and training very hard for this process and to become a relief lieutenant for quite a few years now. His hard work has paid off. Like I said, he finished first in the relief lieutenant process. Tony has a bachelor's degree in fire and emergency response management from UW Oshkosh in June. He also has an associate degree in fire science. And he's also earned many state certifications and special training certifications throughout the state and throughout a variety of different areas, including fire officer 2. Tony was just recently volunteered to take over our youth fire setter intervention and prevention program. So this is the old JFS program that we used to have. So he's leading that up as well. So based on that, I'd like to have spoken with Tony shortly after the process, and he's agreed and shared his willingness and desire to fill that position of relief lieutenant. This is an assignment, and currently Blue Shift has 1 opening. So he's currently working on red. We'd like to move him over to Blue Shift to fill that vacancy. So with that, it's with great pleasure and confidence that I request your approval to assign Tony Fighter to relief lieutenant on Blue Shift. And if approved, Tony's duties as relief lieutenant on Blue Shift would begin on Saturday, September 24th, 2022.
We have a motion to that effect? Motion by Steve. Any questions?
Tony, is that your little boy back there?
Both of them, yes.
Pete, if I were you, considering the trouble you have recruiting, I'd find out.
He's already on the hiring list.
Number 20.
Yes. As soon as we get him his driver's license, he's ready.
The only thing lacking. Roll call, please.
Tiger,
Yes.
Peak,
Yes.
Steingraber,
Yes.
Keo,
Yes.
Myers.
Yes. Congratulations, Tony.
Congratulations.
I have to do this in minutes already.
I got a box so I go
Okay, we're at that point of the agenda where we have the fire service and law enforcement news updates. Go.
Okay, first item is an update on fentanyl seizures from the southern border. And first item, according to Homeland Security, July's rate of seizures shattered the previous record and tripled the rate of seizures in June. In July, Customs and Border Patrol seized 2,071 pounds of fentanyl, which comes out to be 636 milligrams, which is enough to kill 470,681,818 people. 2/3 of the seizures came through the southern California border, and show the significance of this for health. San Diego County Medical Examiner, over a period from 2016 to 2021, had a nearly 2,400% increase in fentanyl deaths. And then heroin was up 8% and meth seizures were up 15% at the southern border. Texas, as a result of the Uvalde situation, they've got $50 million in grants for purchasing ballistic shields and incentivizing the alert training, which is offered out of University of Texas system. Next item, this one came from the Washington Times, a description of what's been happening in Seattle over the past 2 years. Of particular significance is since 2020, the Seattle Police Department has lost 1/4 of its officers. Other points, from March 2020 to March 2021, more than 160 businesses closed or relocated from Seattle, and most of them cited violent crime. And Starbucks, and Seattle is the home city to Starbucks, closed 5 of its stores in Seattle, and that was all due to high incidence of crime.
What happens when the government forgets what its priorities are?
Yes. Going on to the next page, you'll notice our police chief has been proven right.
First time.
There was a study done by the Emergency Responder Safety Institute, which highlighted in considerably greater detail the issues that our chief brought up regarding the LED lighting on the squad cars. And that study even went into the reflective striping on the back of fire service vehicles. General conclusion, when they're stopped, they're too bright. And it's distracting both the officers and it's distracting oncoming motorists. San Bernardino County, they had a pursuit, and one of the cars was a canine car, caught fire after the pursuit. And they did rescue the dog from the car. And he only suffered singed fur, which was very good. Construction costs. Those that read Firehouse Magazine are familiar with Janet Milhoff, consultant and fire service writer. And she notes that for public safety buildings in Wisconsin in the first 6 months of this year, the cost of construction rose 25%. And since our last meeting, 2 Memphis fire trucks were struck by private vehicles, as well as a truck in Brevard County, Florida. That one was actually pushed onto its sides. All of these involved motorists that were either drunk, driving too fast, or failing to yield at traffic signals. And then I don't know how much coverage this got up here, but Milwaukee Fire Department has responded to almost a continuous series of fires at the abandoned Northridge Mall. And several weeks ago, they responded to another one. And there was an 8-minute press conference given by the fire chief. I searched that out if you want to. I didn't bring an audio of that simply because it was 8 minutes. But directly stated he was not happy. The building apparently is not properly secured. The fire sprinkler system was shut off. One of their recent fires, it was hot enough that before they were able to back out, they were actually singeing their fire gear. And apparently the owners are not Wisconsin-based. They're very possibly out of the country. So it's kind of hard to get corrections on that. There was a recent study. This is the abstract of the study. This was about airborne contaminants during post-fire investigations. That's a rather extensive study, but it was indicating, and some of the numbers are at the bottom, how serious volatile organics are even after fires. Been suppressed, materials left over as residues. And going all the way across the country to Hawaii, they had an air ambulance service. There are 2 serving the entire state of Hawaii, and one of them closed down. And the reason they closed, quote, citing inflation and the significant under-reimbursement from Medicare. They couldn't survive the current pricing. They also were responding to the new No Surprises Act. And I don't know whether that's national or whether that is simply in the state of Hawaii, which requires that upfront costs be provided to consumers prior to service. And they cited that as another factor. And quoting from their release, Air Methods conducted extensive financial analysis and explored every option at our disposal for nearly a year, but ultimately determined that keeping these bases open is unsustainable. So that is the end of that. I would also note that Wisconsin State Patrol recently dedicated a new memorial to fallen troopers. And this is at the training center at Camp McCoy, or Fort McCoy. What is interesting, and this goes back to some of the things I've been emphasizing in the past reports, there are 8 troopers who died in the line of duty, 1 from COVID, 2 from gunfire, and 5 were due to deaths at traffic scenes where they were being struck by vehicles. That's all that I have.
I have a question.
Okay, Steve.
I don't know if you know Bill or not. The canine rescued from the burning squad car, I'm curious, was that a gasoline powered or electric vehicle?
Gasoline.
Okay. It'd be nice to know pros and cons of the electric if we come across something.
Okay.
Thank you.
In fact, there was something on the radio the other day about the disadvantages of public safety vehicles going electric. They were specifically focusing on fire vehicles and noting how contradictory it was. That you got to charge them with electricity that's coming from coal-fired or oil-fired power plants, as well as you're going to need some sort of diesel or gasoline generator or pump if the batteries run down too fast.
Okay, thank you. Is there any more in that respect? Thank you. For the fire department bills, I should note that this morning you got a copy of the ones that were just signed yesterday, both fire and police. Obviously you haven't had a chance to review them. It's your discretion if you want to hold them over or considering the new resolution that being they were approved by a commissioner, that we can go ahead and approve both with the ones that are on your agenda. If there are any objection, we'll approve them all. What was in the packet and what was delivered this morning. Fire department.
Okay, so handle them both at the same time? All right, thank you. So you have two sets of bills in front of you, one signed by Commissioner Penker on August 31st, 22, and a second signed yesterday, September 14th, by Commissioner Meek. On page 9C, you'll see a bill in the amount of $13,290 for 4 sets of turnout gear and helmets. So this should be the final purchase of our CIP, 3-year CIP item to get everybody a second set of turnout gear for cancer reduction. So that should round out that CIP project, which we're very thankful to have that, and hopeful that'll help reduce cancer. Our firefighters, both line staff and after retirement. I'd looked through the bills. Other than that large purchase, I really didn't see anything else that really jumped out at me, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have and ask for your approval.
Just on the new firefighting equipment, the turnout gear.
Yes.
How have the prices been up? Has it been up dramatically? Or?
They have. That's a great question. We were actually in a group. We were able to save 6%. With inflation and everything else, and DuPont and 3M, they decided to do away from those discount groups, so we were 6% higher immediately following that. And then our vendor notified us that as of the beginning of this year, it was going up another 15% on top of that, just due to inflation from the materials. So we're looking at 21% increase in cost of turnout gear. I did put that in the budget for moving forward, that increase, so we can make sure we were able to purchase the same amount of gear as we have in the past. But yes, it's a large increase.
And are we set up with washing capability and water extractors for these?
We are, yes.
Excuse me, Bill, I didn't understand.
Were we set up with washing capabilities and water extractors for cleaning of these?
Yeah, we have a large, when we bought the station or purchased the station, we moved in it's basically an extractor just for fire gear to keep those contaminants in that one. It's nothing more than looks like a giant washing machine, but it can handle a few sets of gear. Yeah.
Okay. And it runs into the city system?
Storage problem with all those extra gear?
For storage, so we purchased the mobile gear lockers as another CIP item for this year, for 22. And those took about 6 months to get in, was it ever? We finally got them all here. They're all assembled and they're stored upstairs. What we were doing before was storing them on some racks upstairs, and it was, if you needed your second set of gear in a hurry, it was difficult to find. Now everybody has their second set of gear upstairs with their names on it, similar to what we have over there.
Okay. All right, those are the August 31st cover letter. There's one from September 14th also. Bills. Any comments or anything on that? Keith?
Like I said, I didn't see anything that really jumped out at me. I know there's a second purchase there of more fire gear. And those were more of the safety belts rather than fire gear itself. So we have our self-extricating belts basically that go on your turnout pants. So if you run into trouble in a room you can't get out, you can bail out the window with both and and certain gear that we carry. And that's just due to fires nowadays burning so hot and so fast, and fire advancing so fast through our house, that sometimes you might run into trouble, if you run out of water or whatever, you need to bail out a window, you can self-extricate yourself for self-preservation. So that's what that purchase was for. Otherwise, I didn't see anything else that really jumped out at me.
I entertain a motion to approve those bills that were presented.
I'll move it to, go ahead, then.
You got it.
Move to approve.
Motion by Andy, second by Joe. Any questions or comments on those bills?
I was wondering on 9D, what's the image trend conference?
So Image Trend Conference, Image Trend, that is our ambulance billing software, not billing, ambulance reporting software, fire reporting software. So we go to that annually, or try to. That's where we'll see all the new updates coming out. Learn where we can maybe do more with that program. And it's basically an informative conference that we send 1 or 2 people to every year. PC Bacus went to it this year to again get the updates and see if there's more we can do with that program. It's quite complex. Yeah, so that's what that was.
Okay.
Any other questions? I have a motion and a second to approve. Roll call, please.
Pinker,
Yes.
me,
Yes.
Steingraber,
Yes.
Keo,
Yes.
Myers.
Yes. Okay, police department bills, chief.
Thank you.
Morning.
Good morning. You should have 2 packets or 2 sets of bills in your packets. And one was signed by Commissioner Pinker on August 31st, the other by Commissioner Keo on September 13th. When I reviewed the bills, the only thing that came to note in my mind were, you'll notice on 10G, we purchased 2 9mm Glocks. We try to keep a stock of about 4 extra pistols in-house in case we need to send any for repairs, or if we're involved in a shooting and a gun has to be taken for evidence, we can replace that. With retirements and new hires, we've depleted our stock a bit, and so this will bring us back up to what we need. Other than that, I didn't see anything of note, but I would entertain any questions and ask that you approve.
Are there any questions on the bills? All right. Entertain a motion to approve.
Move approval.
Seconded.
Motion by Andy, second by Steve for approval. Any questions? This is for both sets of bills, by the way. On roll call.
Pinker,
Yes.
me,
Yes.
Steingraber,
Yes.
Keo,
Yes.
Myers.
Yes. Thank you. Fire department activities, training reports and correspondence. Chief.
Thanks again. So I pulled a few items out of here. On page 11A and 11B, you'll see that several of our firefighters went through aerial truck operator ATO class. This is a certification that the state mandates that all of our firefighters get, along with motor pump operator. These firefighters went through motor pump operator already and are now just finishing up ATO class. So they hopefully, I believe they test today.
Yep, today is the practical, so you may see some people walking around. They'll be taking care of the practical exam at a couple different sites in the community.
So good luck to them after they finish up. We should have everybody up to snuff on that. So that's a good thing. Good thing to
Okay.
get behind us.
Question about that, Chief.
Yeah.
Does this training involve positioning the vehicle at the scene, ladder operation?
Yes. Yeah, it's a state certification, so it has everything, which stabilizers you raise first
Okay.
on inclined surface and everything. So they're difficult classes to pass. So.
Okay, and does that also cover operation of a tractor trailer? Or is that a special?
That would be a special, but it does cover it a little bit. I'm assuming the driving portion would be a special. It does go, as I remember back to my class, it does go into the class does go into that a little
Okay.
bit, but not a whole lot. On page 11C, you'll see football season is back. We're continuing to provide an ambulance at Kenneth and Artis Hiding Community Stadium here in Marshfield for both the Marshfield Tigers and this year for the Stratford Tigers. Stratford is currently redoing their playing surface, so they're playing here in Marshfield. But,
Chief,
yes,
are the school systems charged for that service?
no, they're not. We provide an ambulance out there on standby. However, that ambulance is not dedicated to that event. So if we get a 911 call, that ambulance will leave. And then if they're back before game's end, they will return back to the stadium until the game is over. So that's kind of how that's
So it's
made up.
crew that's on, it's not like it's extra overtime.
Correct. Correct. On pages, let's see here, 11B and 11C, the notice DC Mueller and others are very busy with the Central Wisconsin State Fair in August. We do a lot of standbys, and for their special events, we'll provide an ambulance and an engine. We do crowd control for the market sale and dress a cow. We're very busy with the fair when that comes to town. That involves a lot of meeting time ahead of the fair to get everything organized. They'll be having a debrief soon for the fair and how operations went.
Should be this next Monday.
Let's see here. Then on page 11C, finally, you'll notice we conducted our promotional process on August 31st. As I mentioned before, 9 personnel went through the process. At the end of the process, we currently have 3 personnel on the deputy chief list, 0 want to be considered for the daytime DC position, 4 personnel on the lieutenant list, and currently with the assignment of Tony Fighter today, we have 2 on the relief lieutenant list. The eligibility list will remain in effect for a period of 2 years. And I just want to thank all members of this department, the city. Commissioner Steingraber was here to help us out that day. Let's see here. And I also want to congratulate all personnel. They did a great job. So other than that, call volume was up 21% for the month of August as compared to last year in August. So for the year total, we're up 18%. We're on pace for over 4,200 calls. That number keeps creeping up. It was just over 4,000 is what we're on pace for. Now it's increased to 4,277, I believe, is what we're looking at. We've never even come close to reaching 4,000 calls before. Lastly, you should also notice there's a quarterly regional hazmat payment. This is for our hazmat team, in the amount of $2,078.28. This is money we get from the state quarterly to purchase the new hazmat equipment and gear. Be happy to answer any other questions that you have and pass to your police report on file.
Got a question on 11B.
Okay.
We've got a hydrostatic sprinkler test and a hydraulic sprinkler test. What's the difference?
Those are actually the same. I think we said on this print.
Yeah, that's in this print. That's my fault. I'll take that one out.
They're the same test. So you're basically just checking the hydro in the system.
Okay, so water is flowing, or is you put pressure gauges in? Or?
You put pressure, you basically pump it up to 200 PSI, and then with 200 PSI, it has to sustain that for 2 hours.
Okay.
And if it passes that part of it, then the system is basically said it can withstand what they calculated it out to.
Okay.
No leaks, yep. We're not losing pressure anywhere. There's no leaks. There's no issues with it.
Any other questions or comments? Andy?
Chief, you've never come close to 4,200 calls in a year before. I know from having been on the commission that your ambulance buyers aren't sitting around with their finger in their ear. How are you staffing that number of calls, that increase?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. As of right now, due to the enterprise fund issue, we're currently sitting 3 staff short, which makes it even more difficult on our current staff. It's taken its toll. Burnout happens frequently in this business, in the ambulance service business, is running call after call after call. The things they see are stuff that a normal person would never see in their entire life. You start stacking those calls on top of each other for our staff, and it gets difficult to handle both physically and mentally. To answer your question, all of our members are cross-trained in paramedic and firefighting. So our crews try to rotate out and take care of each other. But when we get multiple ambulances out of the station, concurrent calls, we have to call in for overtime when we get below a certain number of personnel in the station, because we need to cover the city for both fire and EMS. So we are seeing an increase in overtime, being short-staffed, and that's pretty much how we have to staff it. If we have multiple concurrent calls, we have to restaff the station with off-duty personnel.
How did the enterprise fund business diminish your staff by 3?
That was a personal choice that I made. The PFC granted approval. We also had approval from Personnel, Budget, and Finance. And on May 31st, when we learned of this issue, I felt it was best to hold off hiring for now, just due to the enterprise fund being at a negative $600,000 balance. We're looking for ways to get those people funded and get them back in. As you know, that's going in front of the council on how to best move forward with the EMS enterprise fund.
Anybody else have?
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on the activities for the fire department? Okay, we'll receive those and place them on file. Thank you, Chief. In your report. Then you have some recognition as well. Okay.
Yeah, our next item. So happy to be able to report to you that firefighter Bowman, firefighter Cook, and firefighter Weber have completed their 1-year probationary period as of August 16th. All 3 were hired on the same day. And all 3 are fitting in really well with other department members and worked very hard throughout their probationary period. I'm very proud of all 3, and all have a bright future at the Marshfield Fire Department. There are pictures of each of them in your packet. Couldn't be here today, but.
Thank you. Congratulations to them.
Mike,
Yes, sir.
yesterday, the police department had a swearing in for, now see the name? Hunter, yeah. Do you do something similar to that in the fire department?
Yes, we do. So shortly after they start, we try to organize and get family here, and we do a swearing-in ceremony where they receive their badge and everything. It's a special presentation kind of set aside from, where we can get family here and everything else. I've invited commission members in the past to come for those, but it's shortly after they actually start. Within a month or 2, we try to get that done.
Okay, we'll move on to added item, which is discuss and review additional fire department revenue options through LifeQuest billing and potentially take action on information presented. You're giving some information this morning from the chief.
Yeah, thank you again. So at department head meetings, specifically related to the budget, we've learned that 2023 is going to be difficult to navigate. The city's facing some financial issues moving forward. So the city administrator did ask department heads to look for additional funding sources, resources out there. So taking that into consideration, and we had already known about additional funding resources just from going to fire chiefs conferences and different conferences and just talking to different fire personnel throughout the state, that there are fire departments out there that do bill the end user for our service in addition to the taxes people pay. In your packet, you'll see a chart of some of those, I guess, incidents that other departments bill for. Things like motor vehicle accidents, hazardous materials incidents, structure fires, vehicle fires, and specifically false alarms is the most popular one that you'll see out there. Most of the departments that are billing for these additional, these additional fees are mainly based in the southeastern part of the state from what my research could show. But there are some central Wisconsin fire departments like Point, I think Wausau also bills for false alarms, that pick and choose certain things out of here. So at the Fire Chiefs Conference, a couple of our members were present and learned about this, and LifeQuest actually had a booth there. That's who we bill through with our EMS. And they are able to bill for these fire calls as well. So it would be a pretty seamless process if this is a route we want to go as far as like setting up LifeQuest. There'd be no cost, little time involved to do that. There is one thing on that list that I am absolutely 100% against billing for, and that would be carbon monoxide calls. Those are mainly in our residences, and I don't want somebody weighing the cost of an additional bill, and then, you know, versus having potential CO in their home and end up getting sick or worse from that. I don't want that to even be out there. So I'm 100% against that. I don't want to see us billing for that if we decide to move forward with this. Personally, I've struggled with this a little bit, billing for additional cost, because I think that's what taxes are for. But there are a lot of departments moving forward with this just due to shrinking state aid. It's been shrinking over the years, and municipalities are having to come up with other ways to figure out how to fund emergency services. And this is not something I ever thought we'd ever come across in my career, that we'd have to look at additional revenue, ways to build revenue, but this is where we're at right now. Outlined a 4-page I guess memorandum for you guys to look at and think about and discuss. Another thing that maybe we could bill for would be re-inspections. So right now, our current process is we'll conduct a fire inspection, we'll conduct a re-inspection, we'll conduct another re-inspection, and then at that point it goes to non-compliance. We'll go back a 4th time to make sure if that violation isn't repaired, then we'll start issuing citations. That goes to the court system. What other departments are doing is the first inspection obviously is free. We'll go back for a re-inspection for free. And then the 3rd inspection, you start seeing a bill. Because there's a significant time investment for our inspectors to have to keep going back to these businesses that aren't repairing their violations. Couple that with our call volume being at 4,200, it's tough to fit all this in a day. So what other fire departments are doing is their billing starts at 3rd inspection. If it isn't repaired by the 4th inspection, the bill increases and so on. I believe Wausau does this currently, and Point is looking at doing a similar thing. It would cut down the amount of work for our inspectors having to go to Everett has to go to court. If there is a citation issued, it would cut down on all this stuff. So I'd be in favor of that as well. False alarms are an issue as well with several businesses around town, where we'll go, I don't know, 20 plus false alarms per year. What other departments are doing out there is after they get 3 free false alarms, if you will, and then after the third, we start the billing process for that. These are just options out there, stuff we've researched and looked at, and what other municipalities are doing right now. So I just wanted to provide this for you for discussion and see where this leads.
I have a question. The municipalities that are doing this currently, are they receiving the money after the third and fourth bill that comes in?
That I don't know. It's billed by LifeQuest, that's all I know. Whether that money's coming in physically, I did not ask that question.
It's usually done with a tax intercept as well. So at the end of the year, if they don't pay it, then it comes out of their taxes.
Okay, thank you.
We did at one time have a policy of charging for after 3 false alarms, and somewhere along the line it kind of fell off. But I've always been in favor of that, because by the time the alarm goes off and everybody jumps on the equipment goes through town, all the potential for possible injury or otherwise is great. So I don't think the people who are having the false alarms, sometimes there's just nothing they can do about it. It's electronic or something, or the water pipe breaks and the alarm goes off. But on other cases, it's habitual, and I'd certainly be in favor of pursuing that myself. But and then the inspections, that's a no-brainer. I mean, it could get them to comply quicker, or to take the initial inspection and the follow-up seriously, and it would save you time from having to go back a third and fourth time and go to court.
Right, I guess I kind of view this as not a moneymaker. It's more of a to persuade people to get their fire alarm fixed if it's continually going off, or for the inspections, like you said, just gaining compliance with the fire code. That's the whole end goal of this. It's not to make money. It's time and effort that you're putting in out there. And like you said, with the false alarms going across town, red lights and sirens, because we don't know if it's a false alarm or not, that's dangerous. It can be dangerous. So,
And the only other one that you mentioned on the memorandum is motor vehicle accidents. They don't have a choice, I guess, if they're gonna, if the accident or whatever they're in has an ambulance, has a fire truck follow, which was your policy or procedure now.
correct.
And but that would just be added to whatever billing they'd have in insurance or something like that.
Correct.
Pay for it.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Any questions or comments on information that was presented?
I mean, I have no problem with the false alarms and inspections, even the hazmat stuff. I mean, some of the fire and the accident stuff, filling in there. I don't know. You could see that as, well, there's personal choice things involved in some of those incidents. Some of it people can't control. There's a gray line there.
I agree.
It's not as dark red as the CO one, but it's going that direction.
Yeah.
You know.
That's what I struggle with too, Commissioner Stanker. I do. That's what I struggle with.
I mean, because you could get an accident where someone's going to get cited. Maybe they were at fault, maybe they weren't. Whatever. Situations vary. There's a whole wide range.
Right.
You know, to kick somebody who's already down and say you get it from fire and police, you know, state and local, you know, I don't know. I don't know if that's an answer to this or not. I don't know. I mean, that might need more discussion, maybe. Go ahead.
I think it's a win-win kind of in some ways, in that when the fire department comes out there, that actually provides some scene security and safety for the officers that are out there. Barricading intersections partially with the equipment. yeah, you have more people out there and the propensity of somebody getting injured might be skewed somewhat, but that equipment does safeguard it. And then when you run into the problem of somebody being uninsured and you're trying to get payment for those services, who would that potentially fall on? The person that does have insurance versus one that doesn't? And I guess the insurance companies would have to decipher who they feel is most at fault today or who would be paying that though.
Right. So, yeah, and to tie in with this a little bit, so when we have a vehicle accident and there's fluid leakage, that's considered a hazmat incident, believe it or not. So what we end up doing is, so for our oil dry, and just for having crews out there, we have what's called a small spill incident. And that's the majority of them here in town. We'll go out there and spread oil dry and, like you said, block the scene and take care of the patients and everything, and wait till the car is on the hook with the tow truck, and wait until that scene is cleared up. And then that bill is separated between, it's split 50-50 between both, because we're not there to decipher whose fault it was. It just gets split and billed to the insurance company. But there's an additional fee that some departments are charging, and it's if we respond to a motor vehicle accident, you've got two people on the engine, at least, if not three. You've got two people responding in an ambulance, which depletes our staff down to levels that a lot of times we're having to call in additional personnel just because our staffing levels are low. And that's with the being a full staff at 12 people. So it does cost us overtime occasionally. So another reasoning, I guess, behind the motor vehicle accident. Billing portion of it.
One other thing, and I guess it's just a concern of mine, and it's something we can also consider pursuing in the future, but could discuss it more before we actually direct the chief to move forward with it, is the difference between mutual aid and actual calls to assist with the ambulance. I've mentioned in the past Spencer and Stratford. I would hope that sometime in the future we might consider discussing this with those two departments and consider being the first call during the 12 hours during the daytime, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. so that we're, first of all, responsive immediately rather than waiting a typical 10 minutes that they wait to see if they have enough people to cover their ambulance. And we end up doing the call anyhow. So if we discuss that, that might be a potential revenue source for the ambulance in the future too. So
yep, that's moving more towards the regionalization concept. Yeah, we're kind of on an island here in Marshfield. The closest two other ambulance services, and they're both BLS services, are Spencer and Stratford. Spencer has 2 ambulances, Stratford has 1. So, if you look at like Rapids, for instance, they have several services down there, several departments with ambulance services that are close by. Wausau has Safer, they have, Riverside, they have several other departments right in their area, help them all. Point has Pulver. We don't have that here in Marshfield. We are on an island. So regionalization is, I think, something we have to start exploring.
what's your pleasure with this recommendation by the fire chief?
Let me make a comment.
Go ahead.
I'm waiting. I don't like this at all. I truly don't. It's antithetical to what I think a government's responsibility is to its citizens. But it's happening everywhere, all over, for everything.
Yep.
I got a degree, a higher ed degree in Wisconsin, and at that time the state was paying between 70 and 80% of what it costs to educate a student. Now they're paying less than 20% in seen a number as low as 12. Stephen's point is a public institution, but it has to operate like a private and live off the tuition. So the cost of educating a student has been moved to the families or the individual student. We're doing the same thing now with fire service, and who knows what we'll do with other city services. We're shifting the cost from the tax base to the individual beneficiary. I don't think that that's right, but it has to happen, and we're gonna have to do something like this because we can't afford to do business if we don't. And that drives me nuts.
I 100% agree. I struggled putting this together. I didn't like putting it together. I never thought we'd be at this point where we'd have to even draft a memorandum like this or explore this idea. It contradicts everything I've ever, when I came into the fire service, I'm with you 100% that.
At the same time, we have to live with the world we're in.
Yep.
Well, I look at it as being proactive, being that the chief took this on to present this to us with possibilities for additional revenue.
Well, I'm glad that you did that, Mike, understand. I mean, that's fine.
Yeah.
I just wish he didn't have to.
Yeah,
He
right.
shouldn't have to.
I wish I didn't have to.
Well, honestly, this is gonna be something, if we have to go down this road and be more aggressive with this is gonna be something that's gonna go down to the community, back over and up at City Hall at the council, and have people saying, why is the people billing? Because the city is not making these two departments the priority like they should be. I've been preaching on priority of government for the last 2 meetings. What is our priority? What does government need to do? Not the things we want to do. What do we need to do? You take care of the needs first and do all the other stuff second. And that's a priority in government thing. So yes, this is gonna push some buttons and people aren't gonna like it. And maybe that'll solve some of the other side funding issues that come direct through the tax base correctly like they should. I mean, I don't wanna have to poke buttons like that, but that may be where we end up being. So, that's my piece.
Let me just add a couple more comments to that. I'm certainly in agreement with the fact that we are a public protection service and we shouldn't be charging. But when your back is to the wall, and I was at the last council meeting and I know how much money is in the contingency fund, it's not a whole lot. Alderman Wagner and I were talking about that. You know, we're pretty much to the point where we're down to the last check in the checkbook. Do you write that or not? We're not in the position to increase taxes a whole lot. We've got limitations there. We obviously have financial situations that affect this department vis-a-vis the enterprise fund. Well, the enterprise fund isn't operated by the department, it's operated someplace else. So we would really preferably not have to charge. When your back's to the wall, you may have to start charging for some services. Certainly for false alarms, I'm greatly in favor of charging for those, both fire service and for the police department. But as a perspective, and within this perspective, the departments are somewhat different than ours. I went back through my notes, and back in 2014, I was asked by somebody who lives in a rural area of Wisconsin. Very simple question. What do the fire departments where you are charged when they go to a fire? Now, this person lived in an area served by a rural fire department. Their ISO rating was 10, which I don't think you can get much below that.
Thanks the town.
But this person related to me a situation in which a neighbor wound up with a bill for $25,000 from the volunteer fire department. They were charging a fee for the pumpers, fee for water tenders, fee for a ladder truck, They were charging per hour for firefighters, per hour for lieutenants, captains, and chiefs, all at different rates. They had a water tender fill-up charge, charge for just operating the hydrant, and they had to go back to a fill point. So I contacted some people I knew in emergency management, and I got 5 examples, and these are all rural departments. And this goes back to 2014, so I have no idea what they're doing now. But at that time, one department serving a rather large area, they charged $4.50 flat rate, $4.50 for a pumper, $12 per hour for firefighters. They had a hydrant fee just to open the hydrant, and they were charging a fee for every 1,000 gallons used, both into a tender and coming out on the fire, even if it wasn't used. Another department, $250 response fee, $50 an hour to a maximum of $750. Another department, they bill up to $1,500. Another department, no bill, but if there was insurance coverage, they would bill you $500. And then the third department, simply a flat response rate of $500. Now, admittedly, these are rural departments. They don't have a substantial funding base. They may operate, quite frankly, a minimal tax base and a lot of contributions, so they may need this. But it is done out there. We may not like to do it. Like I said, when your back gets up to the wall, you may have to do something. And then going back to the EMS situation, this may be a little bit hard to see from where you are, but this is Marshfield right there. We're critical care paramedics. Critical care here, critical care there, critical care here. There's nobody. We are truly an island. And as Chief said, you get over to the Wausau area, which is over here, get towards Eau Claire and Chippewa Falls, get to the south of us, this is down by Milwaukee. We're in that really unique position in terms of manpower.
Just for reference, to this date, we've had 53 false alarms for fires as of end of August, too. Just wanted to put that out there.
Well, I would like to see our command staff come back with not necessarily a proposal, but a first draft of a fee schedule so that we can discuss that, add, subtract, whatever. I think we need a starting point. And I just stick in my 2 cents worth on false fire alarms. First false alarm, find out what it was caused for. Second, do some education. And third, start to bill. I wouldn't go beyond 2. I think tying up manpower, false alarms is dangerous, as was said, and I don't think we should give these people any break on this.
I have a question for the commission as a body. Do you think it would be appropriate for us to inform the council that we're examining this as a possibility? And my thinking is that if the council knew that we were going in this direction, examining it anyway, it would give them an opportunity to think through whether that's consistent with their vision of what city government should do for its citizens.
Well, the recommendation by the chief was to actually be prepared to present this on an October 4th finance meeting. But it might serve, being that we're gonna review some fee structures in the future for the commission, that it wouldn't hurt if you maybe made a presentation at the next council meeting with this in hand, to let them know that this is the direction you've been given to, so it's not a surprise. And maybe they'll have some input as well. Maybe they'll have some productive recommendations that they can make in that direction too. But it won't be drop it on their lap and make a decision on this, because I can understand how it's a tough decision, and even on your part to come forward with something like this, but it keeps the lines of communications open with them, and there won't be any surprises in the future when we do come up with a fee structure. So it just kind of open the door for it. Mayor?
Yes, I have a comment. As you know, you go into a business, used to be, this was free. Now you pay for that extra. Almost every business you go into has an extra fee for things because they have to, because of the cost of everything that goes up. Don't beat yourself up, Pete, and you guys, seriously, because this is the way of the world, unfortunately. I mean, who is more sad than us that this has to be? But at least we're taking responsibility. I mean, it's not the answer, and I do agree. Bring it before the council, I think that's probably good, because it shows that you're not giving another way to help, but you are giving another way to help. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. You know, you're not pushing their backs to the wall, but yet you're showing that you've got something else going on. I mean, I was appalled when I went into a business and they charged me 75 cents for the to-go container. I couldn't believe it, but that's the way of the world. And what do we do about it? We have to make this part of our new life, unfortunately.
Well, I think going to the council really is a follow-up to what Stephen and I did 2 meetings ago, telling them that relative to the ambulance fund, you know, we were doing work, and appropriate time, we'd let them know what we have. I think the same thing applies here. Now, I do not have anything on paper, but I do clearly recall that a number of years ago, that is undefined, there was discussion, and again, if my recollection is correct, it was some nasty discussion at a council meeting as to why we didn't charge out-of-state residents and out-of-city residents for our services. I remember specifically referencing traffic situations. And the statement being, well, they don't live here, so why don't we charge them? So it's been through them at least once in the past.
How personalities change every year, you know, on the council, with the turnover with council members. So maybe I look at this being a positive thing that Pete took the initiative. It'll also reflect well on the commission that as hopefully the council will look at it as being, you know, again, we're being proactive and not reactive in a sense. But you know, we're on top of things. For that, I appreciate the input, Chief. But I think it'll be, again, it keeps the line of communications open, which we sorely need to do with the council. So.
You know, there is an enormous statewide model for this that's been in place for a long time, and that's out-of-state tuition at universities.
I mean, they charge out-of-city rates for like stuff like Parks and Rec and stuff like that, you know, so it's not like that would be a dramatic departure. I don't know how big of a change you want to split those, but I mean, I guess that's do we do that part out later? That wouldn't be the worst idea.
We'll come back with some kind of model that we can pass around. And then we can move from there.
Okay, so for clarification, come back here first before speaking at council, or?
Let the council know
Okay.
what we're up to,
Okay,
and then bring us some sort of fee schedule. I know you referenced building inspections and permits there. I don't think we have to be as extensive as they are on some of theirs, but something that we can discuss.
yeah. Yeah, as far as the permits that we issue, Everett, or DC Mueller's taking a look at that. A lot of that is just a reflection of time that we spend on these construction sites to do hydrostatic tests. And I think updating that hasn't been updated in a little while. Updating that to reflect the time we spend on those sites is appropriate. So DC Mueller's gonna be working on that on top of billing.
Maybe if you would, then just contact the mayor or somebody to have this on the agenda so that, and again, the memo was very useful and very informative, so I would, like I said, take this in hand and detail what the possibilities will be.
Okay. Make it happen, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And then we're just giving you the directive. I don't think anybody's not in concurrence with that, so I don't think we need a motion or anything. Okay, thanks again, Chief.
Thank you.
Oh, Police Chief's here. Yeah.
Are you done already?
I'm gonna water here.
You're not talking? It's the Fire and Police Commission.
Next item is the police activity report, Chief.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. As you mentioned a couple of times this summer that during the summer months, training tends to dwindle down a little bit. There's not a lot offered, but we do keep busy. We've been very busy as with the fire department. We've been busy with the fair preparation and staffing. That took up quite a bit of time this month. You'll see that we've reached out with a lot of community partners and different folks and businesses in the community through this week. One of note is the Special Olympics fundraiser at Dunkin' Donuts. We were able to participate in that. I would like to give special thanks to DC Jonas for helping us get a ladder. We got there early in the morning and the manager said, well, we didn't have time to call the fire department to get on the road. So Eric stepped up and took care of us real fast. There's two things I'd like to point out in our activities that are special to me. One is the dedication for Lavon Zenner, the bridge. We were able to participate in that ceremony. It was an outstanding ceremony and what an honor. She was an auxiliary member with us prior to being hired with Wood County Sheriff's Department, where tragically on her way to work, she was killed in a car crash. That dedication was really, really nice. And it was something that I thoroughly enjoyed and thought it was a great honor. And the other we'll talk about shortly is my wife and I were able to go to Albany, New York for Fred Beal's induction in the International Wrestling Hall of Fame. That was probably one of the best experiences I've had as a police officer to do that. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. With that, I would ask that you place our activities on file unless there's any questions that I can help entertain.
Any questions for the chief?
Do you consider this that you gave us to be part of the information from the...
We added that. Actually, Commissioner Steingraber had a great idea to add some of our calls similar to what the fire department does. We wanted to do this just as information.
Fine. Would you go to page 13D?
Okay.
And if you go down a ways, you get to fraud, identity theft.
Okay.
It looks to me like you tell us that you have cleared at least one when there haven't been any.
Those are all really good questions, and I need to learn this sheet better.
Keep going over.
Yeah, I know. Well, what does that say?
You have to say if we didn't have one and cleared it, that our clearance rate is above average.
Yes, I
I will look into that, Andy, and see how our reporting is.
It's no big deal, I just love it when I find that kind of.
And I love it when you bring it up.
Well, as long as we're on 13D, what types of drugs are we picking up?
We've got a buffet of drugs, if you will.
Is there any one that is more prevalent than any other?
I would say probably meth, and we have been picking up some fentanyl. We've got the whole gamut.
And then,
Crack is coming back a little bit.
then on the other page, on C, have we had any experience with human trafficking?
Not that's been reported at all.
Okay.
No. Unfortunately, that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. That is a crime that can fly under the radar.
Yeah.
But we have not had any reported.
Okay.
Fentanyl, it is amazing to me, the minuscule amount that will kill somebody. But it's a wonderful drug.
For cancer patients and people.
Oh, I had it once for kidney stones. And from one of the paramedics in the ambulance, sprayed it up my nose. Before we got to and I don't live far from the hospital, before we got to the hospital, after I had it and the pain had gone away, I asked him if I could buy a gallon. It worked.
With the intent to distribute.
No, I was gonna keep it for myself.
Personally, it's not.
And that's what's actually causing a lot of ODs is these drugs are laced with fentanyl, so a drug user would take their normal dose, not knowing it's laced with fentanyl to give them that extra high. And if they take their normal dose with it, it's laced with fentanyl, they end up ODing.
Well, I tell you, it is effective. The one time.
Powerful.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments on the police department activity report? You will review or receive those and place them on file. We have a memorandum of understanding for SRT.
Yes, this was actually in the works prior to me being promoted. I did have both of the Travises here to help with any questions, but I'll try to sort through it as best I could. Travis Esser had another meeting he had to get to. We have found that we can increase our resources and our ability to handle difficult calls, their SWAT calls, without increasing our costs very much by joining with other agencies. Namely, in the beginning was Wood County and Wisconsin Rapids. We were working towards those, the three of us joining a joint or regional team, if you will. Wisconsin Rapids had since backed out. And not having a chief in place right now, they thought that it was best to at least hold off if they decide to join at all. We've been training together, our teams, Wood County and our team has been training together for the last few months, and the training is meshing very well, and things are working well. So we thought it would be best possibly to go ahead with our two departments, and in the future, if Wisconsin Rapids wanted to join, then we would consider it. With the thought of going ahead to approach the commission, if approved, we wanted to enter a memorandum of understanding, which basically indicates that at any time we can back out and go onto our own team. There wouldn't be a governing board, so to speak. The boards would be essentially your decisions through us on our side of the ball. The other side of the ball would be the Safety Commission with Wood County. So it's basically cleaning up what we've done through mutual aid in the past, and it's allowing us to train together so that our tactics can group or mesh together in an incident. So we did, I wanted to bring a clean paper with you, in front of you rather, so I did approach Hap. He's reviewed it to make sure that the language is decent. Sheriff Becker did bring it forward. His meetings was before ours, He did bring it forward to his governing body, and they did agree to sign. So that's where we are now. I would entertain any questions that come up. I know it's a little bit different than what we've done in the past, but I think it's the right direction if it's approved by you folks. But Travis and I could try to answer any questions that come up.
Andy?
And just to be straightforward, do you see any downside to it? Anything we need to watch or?
I really don't. In the past, I think what's held us back in the past is the worry that one of the departments would take over or to become overbearing. And I just don't see that, especially if it became that way at any time. If there's a new sheriff, we're back in the hopper every 4 years potentially. And if a sheriff becomes overreaching, then we could back out and not have, we're not planning to buy equipment together. We're not planning to have any of that, for lack of other terms, marriage, to where we'd have to split assets if we were to separate. I really don't see any disadvantages to this agreement.
Well, if you can magnify your resources and magnify your effectiveness by joining in with another agency, let's do it.
Okay.
Would the training be split between different locations to accommodate the expenditure of transportation, vehicle wear and tear, travel time, et cetera?
Well, it's worked actually really well. We were actually in Clark County 2 months ago-ish. We had the house. I mean, so we go to where, if we have an opportunity for a building, we're willing to travel. The increase in cost, our any overtime on SRT is done with comp time. That's by contract. The vehicles that we're using aren't used very often, so the additional miles really doesn't add up to a lot. It's worked very well. So we'll go south end of the county. They come up here. We don't necessarily do it 50-50. We're going to where we have opportunities to train.
Go ahead, Bill.
Geographically, when you look at where you would have major departments in Wood County, this just makes sense.
They're heavier on the south end, but where we had it didn't come out exactly the way I wanted. But they have more departments on the south end of the county than we do up here. This adds to our ability to mutually.
Just to give our official blessing, I think a motion would be in order to proceed with this, and we'll give it your motion to that effect.
I'll move that we support the chief signing the memorandum of agreement for the SRT teams to train and work together.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Good luck on that.
Thanks.
You have a resignation to announce.
Yeah, unfortunately we do. Flynn McQuillan decided to resign from our department. I think, and actually if we can probably combine these next two agenda items if you'd like, but Flynn did resign and is pursuing other options or other career endeavors at this point, which unfortunately leaves us with an opening in the patrol division. I would like to request permission to proceed with filling that position. It's not adding anything, would bring us up to our regular staffing levels.
Okay, one motion would be to accept the resignation of the police officer. That's your motion. So Steve, second by Bill. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next one would be approval for the chief to fill that vacancy.
So moved.
Second.
Steven. Any questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Now, something you've been wanting to
Finally.
also see on.
So, I never dreamed that I would be able to have an opportunity to take part and represent our department in something like this. Fred Beal, as most of you know, but I'll talk about him a little bit anyway. He was our only officer that's ever been killed in the line of duty. It was in 1933, and he was killed while responding to a robbery at the brewery. He was killed by some gangsters who ultimately were all identified. 2 were arrested, and 1 was found in a shallow grave, most likely killed by their own people during this shootout. We as a police department focused so much on his death because, you know, we were honoring his service to our community, we're honoring his service as a police officer, but, you know, we never really focused at all on his life. And we knew that he was a wrestler, we knew that he was pretty good, but that's about all we knew. When I went to New York, we were sitting with some of the most interesting people that I've ever met in my life, good and odd. There was Brian Solomon, who was lead editor for, I believe, WWF Magazine or Wrestling Magazine, just a well-known person, just a joy to talk to. And he asked what I was doing there, and I said, well, I get to accept the award for Fred Beal's induction. And he went, Fred Beal? And he went on about all of the things that he did. He was known as just one of the strongest, toughest guys in the ring. A little bit dirty because he was only 5'4", 160 pounds going up against these monsters. And so he said he would throw an elbow now and then and maybe a headbutt here and there, but ended up being a champ. Had 3 belts at one time, most notably with a guy by the name of Frank Gotch, who was like 6'3" monster, and he threw him down to the ground and got him dizzy, and it was 2 out of 3 falls. So while he was dizzy, he took him down again and got the belt. He had it a week. Frank came back. There's still actually a throw used in wrestling that's called the Beal. And I did find one thing on YouTube where I don't even know the wrestler that did it, but he threw the dude, and it's just a real simple throw. There's several there that wanted to show me, I wouldn't let them. The announcer said, "What a massive Beal!" Like, it was so cool. He was a side fighter. He would fight for cash, and in the early 1900s, he was fighting big guys in barns all over the United States for up to $1,000 a match. He had very, very prominent wrestlers that were afraid of him. He wouldn't fight him. He was just this little guy. So it was just amazing to start hearing about that. He didn't have any kids. His wife Anna, they were married for 3 decades, and we never knew anything about any of that. So to have an opportunity to represent our department, to learn about all of this, a lot of the people down there had no idea he was a cop. So it was that where those 2 worlds kind of collided, and it was really cool. So they did give us this plaque. I'm told that well, this is a replica. I did see the original. So it's an exact replica of what they have in the Hall of Fame, and it's made by the same company that makes the pennants for the New York Yankees. And so we're the only entity that will ever have a replica of what's in the Hall of Fame. And they did that because Fred doesn't have family, and we can display for our city and represent Fred and his wrestling career. So I'll pass this around for everybody. And then my plan is to talk with Shirley Mook and have this inducted into the display at the museum. If you haven't seen that, it's really cool. They've got the Fred Beal display, and if you go around the corner, they actually have a picture of him where he served in the Army, so as a corporal. So it's pretty cool. I've been kind of having that in my office with thoughts I might want to keep it in there, but
PC Mueller wants to learn the deal.
oh, let me show you. If you go on YouTube and search Fred Beal, I believe it will pop up, and it's very quick. And but it says after the throw, the announcer is like, "What a massive Beal!" That's awesome. So,
Thanks for representing the city on that in your department,
it was an absolute honor.
and for coming back with some information. I've always studied Mr. Beal. That's probably the second historical biography I ever wrote back when I was a freshman. But there's there's stuff you mentioned previously to me that, I never heard of, so.
Yeah, there was a lot of the stories that, you know, when we went down there and started hearing about his wrestling stories, you start to wrap your head around how this dude was just a gentleman outside of the ring and just a beast inside. So it was really cool.
I think one that sticks out in my mind is he worked up a manufacturing company, a furniture factory, and then he always showed off by taking like a dresser or something at arm's length and walking around with it.
Yeah, and one that Shirley shared with me is that just because he could do it, he would lift the back end of a fire truck with people in it, pick the truck up. So it was early 1900s, so you know the trucks were a little smaller. He was a force to be reckoned with. No doubt.
And he owns some land in this area and out in the country. And he exercised by pulling stumps out of the ground.
Like weeds.
Full for it. Yeah.
Sounds like Mr. In Trouble.
Yeah.
For the end, invented grinders. So, well, thanks. I appreciate that. It's a good way to end the meeting. So, on a good note. Are there any other items for the future agendas?
I only have what's coming from the chief, and other than that.
Okay. All right, then we're prepared. I should know, I goofed. We should have had those last two motions, a roll call vote. So if everybody's in, doesn't mind going over one more time, we should do it the right way. Accept the resignation and a roll call vote, please.
Pinker.
Yes.
Meek.
Yes.
Steigerver.
Yes.
Keo.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes. And then approval of the request to fill that position. A roll call vote, please.
Pinker.
Yes.
Meek.
Yes.
Steigerver.
Yes.
Keo.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes. See how easy that is to fix things? It was on one of my agendas, but not the other one. It was the one, updated one. So, no future items. If I don't hear any objections, as far as adjourning the meeting, then we are adjourned. Okay, thanks.